get to see me, you have the pleasure to see me again. Not recording, right?
Not yet. That live.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Hey folks, it's 4 o'clock. Welcome to our 2025 March 17th, St. Patrick's Day budget budget work. First off, as always, we'd like to start off that we acknowledge that we're located here tonight on Treaty 5 territory, the homeland of our friends, the Pacific Cree Nation, as well as many other Indigenous people, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. Now, before we get started tonight, though, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to recognize the passing of a longtime community member this past weekend. People haven't heard, Evans Premichuk has passed away. And if people that know Evans, he is a dedicated ambassador, fierce protector, and a champion of our communities for many, many years. And you know, if you look at what contributions he's made around our community, they are widespread, and we're sure that his footprints will be long lasting in our community. So with that, I would like to just send condolences to his family, Lisa, Lynn, Carol, and Marla, and obviously their spouses and all of Evans's loved ones as they go through this difficult time. But I'm sure there's many people in our community and many in this room that are sending positive thoughts and prayers towards the family and all of those impacted by Evans's passing. If it's okay, council is okay, if maybe we can have a brief moment of silence as we honor Evans. As I'm sure Evans is over watching us anyways today, making sure that we're keeping the train on the tracks and or keeping it between the ditches. We can call this meeting to order unless Councillor Hopper, would you like to add a few words?
If Evans was here, he'd say it was very nice. Good job. He was always looking for what was best for our communities, the Tri community. He had concerns with the UCN, how we can make it better, healthcare, and he wouldn't just be negative. He'd come in with solutions, problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
And quite often, Mardine and Evans would follow up with solutions with their donation. to the library, the museum, to the boardwalk, like, as you said, is their footprints are all over town, positive. I remember every time we would meet him, we'd come to town, we'd always be shake his hand, and he'd always say, "Charmed, I'm sure, charmed, I'm sure." I just know what, and so who's charmed? You or me? He'd laugh. He was always working. If he wasn't working, he was thinking about working. He was innovative. He told me when he first got into the rental business that he went to a local bank in town before he had any rental property to make a purchase. And he was told, no, can't you listen to him, he was aware. And again, if anybody knew Evans liked to talk. So anyway, he talked to various banks in town, and they all said, no, can't do it. So he said, I went to Winnipeg, went to the top of the food chain. He sat in the office. He said, I talked and I talked and I talked, and I didn't leave until they said yes. So I said, I got my way, and they said, then when that part was over, so then we had to talk about the interest. So I imagine he did a good job. But he will be missed. I don't know how many years he was a Rotary member, but a long time, and very dedicated member when he was younger. He was very active, even up into his last days. He was attending meetings in Kelowna and all of that. So citizens like that are hard to find. We have others similar to that in town, but they definitely both of them have left a void.
Yeah, one of a kind for sure. I'll appreciate those words, Counselor. Okay, we will call the meeting to order. Somebody should have a motion to, or a resolution to adopt the agenda.
Councilor, we have two additions. We amend Ag Society and CDC objections. And myself, second by Councilor Allen, that the agenda be adopted as amended.
Any issues? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, just a note, Councilor, I should have said it earlier, Councilor Forster is absent right now, but did leave a message for me to say that he is maybe just running a bit late, so hopefully he's able to make it. I'm gonna go a little bit out of order on our agenda so we can get some of our visitors here. So if you want to come, Ag Society, and appreciate you coming tonight. Have a seat, introduce yourself. Don't introduce the guy behind you. My first Jeff.
Here. So I'm Val Burscheid, and I'm president of the Ag Society, and I'm just sitting here thinking that maybe I'll just take a page out of Evan's book and not leave. And just keep talking, so, because I can talk all night too.
Perfect. Oh, we will cut you off because you have 15 minutes.
So the Ag Society, we've been busy, and last year, well, starting in 2012, when we built the grandstand, and 2018, we opened up the campground. And then also in 2018, we had the first chuck wagons and chariots. And that first chuck wagons and chariots, our budget was $15,000. And that was to pay for them. And we were scraping. We didn't know if we were going to have any money because we didn't have any money in the bank. So whatever we made at the gate and everything, and we made enough to do that. So scroll forward, then we started with the chuck wagons again after COVID. And it was up a lot. So our budget that year was close to 40,000. And the chuck wagons and chariots, we give them the prize money, which is around 15. And then we also give a $500 gas incentive to help them pay for, their trip up here, because we can't get people up here. Like, it's too far. We have to offer them something. Mm-hmm. And then and then we also brought in the trick riders. And then last year we brought in the Canadian Professional Bull Rider. And that was another $46,000 for them. And they were excellent. Both organizations are excellent to work with. They are very, helpful. The bull riders, we've never done that before. It's the first time they've been north. I think the farthest north here in Manitoba, they were at Dauphin. And they've never been farther. So they put on an excellent show, and but we had to pay for the stock, and they were out of Swift Current, and so they brought their own pounds because they have to be a lot thicker because they're dealing with the bulls. And they also brought in these mini horses, so we had wild pony races. So you had groups of kids, and three kids, and they had to catch a pony and then needed to put a kid on top of its back.
Mhm.
It was pretty exciting. It was pretty fun. So this year we're looking at hosting again, 15th of August, 15th, 16th, and 17th. We have a meeting tomorrow night to discuss more. We've got both the chuck wagons and the bulls are booked already, and the riders are booked. And last year we had bouncy houses that cost us $4,000 to bring in. So we ended up charging $10 for the day for kids to be on it. So we made $2,500. So it cost us a little bit, but it was a big success for the bouncy houses. And they looked after it, but as I said, it costs a lot to get us here. The professional bull riders, we had 10 riders, 2 from Australia, BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. And the announcer has won the best announcer like 9 times in his career, and he was just a step above everyone. Actually, anybody I've ever dealt with, he was a real professional. So it was a real exciting time, and but we only gave them the bare minimum for the prize money. So this Cody that we deal with has said, if you want to bring more in, then we have to put the prize money on. And we also gave the riders $250 each to just come. And these guys are little, well, not little, but they're slim, and they are just young guys, and they just travel around to rodeos. They 6 in a vehicle or 5 in a vehicle, and they have a little bitty box on top of a truck, and they sleep in there. 2 sleep in there, 1 sleeps in the front seat of the cab, another in the back, and another one wherever he can find. So it's pretty neat. But we had to put titanium lines across the front of the grandstand on the fence, 300 feet of that. So that cost us quite a bit last year. We keep adding to our track to make it an all-weather track so that we can have, if it rains, then we're okay. And yeah, so those are basically the things. I have a beautiful PowerPoint here that I can't share.
Well, maybe you could forward the PowerPoint to our CEO. But I guess what we were looking for is, because we hadn't seen, as we mentioned just before the meeting started, we hadn't seen you guys yet.
Yeah.
And we don't want to miss an opportunity to be able to help out if necessary. So we're asking, what are you looking for this year, that we can sort of have a discussion at our council table. And if you have some number, unless you guys are good, send us an actual letter with, send us a note to say, this is what we're looking for.
Well, we have, like, for the events that we're putting on, then we also have an infrastructure to put on. Like, our electrical hasn't been upgraded since probably the 60s. So I don't know if you've ever been down to the grounds and saw the whole pole behind the concession. That's our electrical that needs to be updated. We need, we're trying to figure out ways that we need a new concession because it was damaged in 2018 from the flood. And so we've pasted that together, trying to do that. So we're also looking at, OCN has put in an interest in bringing the Indigenous relay here. It's between $30,000 and $50,000. So we'd like to maybe do a partnership with them somehow to start, because I think that's something that has never been here either. So it's pretty exciting. we're looking at making our grandstand accessible. And it's $46,000 to put a ramp on the grandstand. To add an aluminum ramp from the same company. They sent me the,
There's no grant for that?
I've applied again this year, so we'll see. So I've applied the last few years, but yeah, it's expensive. So, and we're looking at making our bathrooms accessible also. And one thing I was gonna ask, the garbage stands that you have, those boxes, where did you buy those, or where did you get those? So, well, like at the lake, we have one of those big garbage stands that you throw your garbage inside. It's very tiny.
That steel shed with the screen on it.
Like the ones that are bare.
Yeah,
So we just price them out from.
Excellent.
You just have to be very specific in your search, but. Yeah, but Chris,
From Excel?
Home Depot, the big bear ones that we.
No, the ones that, I think he's talking about the garbage,
The
shed,
chain
the
link.
steel door where you can throw your garbage in it.
yeah,
It looks like they're homemade.
I think Excel would have made that for us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Excel probably made that one for us.
Because we'd like to, like, we were having lots of trouble with garbage last year, people throwing their household garbage in our stands. And so we were thinking if we have one of those, then we could put a lock and change the combination and just give it to the camper. And we want to make the grounds Wi-Fi accessible.
Those are,
So a couple $100,000 would help.
That would be perfect. Whatever you have that you can give us, we would.
Further what the mayor was saying, send us a letter of, the certain amount that we can work on. Even if it's various event sponsorships, like
Yeah.
some sound like some of them are fairly expensive. I don't imagine winners will take post-date checks, will they?
That's the thing.
Then, if we have a number, then we can, okay, we can afford it or we can't.
Yeah.
Go on. Sounds like I know when you did a presentation here,
Yeah.
it's like very extensive, and you've got a big plan and lots to do with it. It's gonna be a lot.
Well, and we could do it without this community. Like, the pod, we raised, around $63,000 in sponsorships
Step
here.
at a time.
Yeah,
If you could send us that, then. we
Yeah.
can-
yeah. But everybody got together and it was great. We've got some new ideas for this summer and, we maintain our own grounds and the mowing and that. I did manage to get 2 green team last year at the end, so that our grounds were beautiful. Right, way, if you ever drove by, they were better than ever. So hopefully we can do that again this year maybe. And go from there, but.
well, thank you.
Did I miss anything?
Send us
Okay, I will.
send us something sooner than later. I know
Okay.
Laura wants to wrap this up
Okay, I'll
quickly,
get it
so.
out tomorrow if you. I'll ask for the moon now.
Well, we're hoping this is sort of one of our last, if not the last meeting tonight.
Still trying to find the pot of gold, so.
Okay,
Well, we've seen Jackson coming in here with a wheelbarrow, so we're kind of worried about the museum.
Things are gonna
I'll send you the sponsorship. I want to sponsor.
Okay, thank you. Jonathan, do you want to come and do the CDC one, real quick? Sure. Should be easy for the most part.
Yeah.
$100 on Okay, Jonathan, go.
Okay, Jonathan Lawn, Economic Development Officer for the PAW CDC. Most of all, business as usual for, grants from the town, salaries, wages. And then we are asking for 45,000 this year for operation grant, both from the town of the PAW and, RM of Kelsey. And the RM of Kelsey have provided their grant from last year, 45,000 as well. So we're looking to continue with that. Tourism kept at 15,000. We're asking $5,000 for each partner. Town of the Paw, OC, and the RM of Kelsey.
What is tourism, Jonathan, just so people know?
Discover the policy, and so, that's, tourism funding goes to help support that program. And we use it for promotion of, the tri-community.
So it's the balls that place branding there.
Yeah.
So it takes
that's our-
care of registering with Travel Manitoba, pays for somebody to do all the content for the website and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, we contract out for, wages for website and, social media posts, things like that. And then we have our subscription for the website and, kiosk as well.
Okay.
And then, last year, I did manage to make a couple of small partnerships, get some donations in. Hopefully this year I can work on getting more, that will help, with our budget. Some major expenses this year.
Just as a note, Jonathan, just so everybody sees that budget, $100,000 last year gone to recruitment. That was actually not an actual number, that was the return to service agreement, so everybody remembers that. That's a
Yeah, and that
cost, that's
money
a
went
cost.
back to both
Yeah.
partners, Town of the Paw and the RM. So yeah. We're looking at, an increase of, board expenses for this year. We didn't use our total budget last year, but, this year we're looking at some government relations. We've been building connections with the ministers. And, we're planning an economic development visit to Winnipeg to be able to meet with, the ministers there. The health minister, economic development. We've been in discussions with, the immigration department, so just keeping up with those, connections.
Jonathan, why wouldn't, I'm just curious as to when they come to town and you meet with them here in town, is this specific for board members to go to Winnipeg?
This one's specific for the CDC board, yeah, members.
One trip.
And then, last year we did, make some progress on the campground, Clearwater Lake. There was 11,445 we spent. We're looking to increase that to, 20,000. That'll help us to get to start hopefully with development, getting surveying done of the lots, for development, and then move forward with, some work with the campground. And, for that, there's, we are planning the Clearwater Lake Campground. There's been a master plan sort of developed. Plan for more lake lot, BC land in the valley. There's also some developments, for, the trailer park, and then, some planning at Clearwater Lake as well. And then storefront improvement program.
I have a question.
Yeah,
So the $50,000 towards the RM land, what would you put that towards?
there is, commercial development property and, residential that hasn't been zoned yet, so we'd have to go for a land survey. And so to get that zoned, get that ready for development. There's no access like water and sewer out there. We don't have the infrastructure, and so some more planning.
So that's a marketing strategy, land development. We need to understand what's gonna take, if that land is valuable, and what it's gonna take to actually develop it and use that marketing information that way. The CDC knows we don't need another needs assessment survey to tell us how many houses we need and that we need senior homes. We know that, but speaking with, the municipal superintendent and others, we gotta kind of know where our next development area is and where we should start investing, such as we talk about moving water from down by the garage to the south end of town. Is that a priority for us to get done? Because that's another $1 million sort of thing, so. So I think this is where this money is to look at overall the community. It says if brown development area is the area, then it's time for the community needs to start spending some money and maybe have to borrow some money to develop the lots so they're ready. That's kind of what it's.
So it's not specific to VR.
No, it's
All
Okay.
areas
Yeah,
of
all-
land that could be.
Because I was
We were
thinking that was part of the Kelsey Planning District and it should already be zoned.
It's
Is it
not
not?
zoned. No,
We have a proposed zone like plan, but it hasn't been zoned or surveyed.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And then also some work on the downtown as well. There's a project for looking at the downtown too.
that storefront improvement program, is that what you're talking about?
Your Town Rising, if we were to go ahead with this consulting company, what they do is they come and look at they'll come and do a walkthrough of the downtown. They'll meet with the public, we can have discussions with the business owners, and then just some planning, community planning around it. Yeah, and then the storefront improvement program, we're looking to partner with the Chamber of Commerce or the DMC, Destination Marketing. There's also some other partnerships we could develop with the Community Renewal Corp for downtown beautification. So we earmarked 15,000 for that, just to ramp that up. There's been some improvements last year on a couple of businesses. We're hoping that more businesses will buy into the program and cooperate and fix up downtown. And then fees and dues pretty much stays the same. General travel, we do go to some conferences, linkages. There's a transportation symposium we went to last year, as well as the Hudson Bay Route Association AGM. So that just helps with some of that travel. This year, the Economic Developers Association Forum in Steinbach. Last year, I was sent to Portage la Prairie.
This is Jonathan's travel, not board travel.
Yeah. And then skip down, you go to the legal fees. We've been having a discussion about what we could do with the clinic to get that built. Instead of just waiting for the government to build it for us. We could start do some of the planning and propose an idea to the government. We'll take on the bill and then they can rent it from us after. Yeah, so just to get that moved along, maybe if we start the project, the government will pitch in funding to help complete it. So there's been some discussion around. So
What's the community portion that the community has to come up with?
And yeah.
Project?
Well, the community portion is zero. What we're saying, the government has a number, a formula. We should talk about it in camera.
Yeah, they did the same with St. Paul's.
Yeah.
There's a community portion.
Yeah, but I'll talk to you in camera about that.
So that's what we're proposing, is we with the lawyers sit down, come up with a plan, and then present it to the government.
So the idea is that creating that corporation, you may have to create a separate, or the CDC can stand alone, where you become a developer and then you engage somebody else to build it for you. You know, you can help finance it. It becomes a long-term contract with healthcare that they're more or less paying for it, although you are sort of the owner of it. And then after a period of time, you know, when you pay your loan back, it becomes a community asset. So that with now is generating revenue, although you have to maintain that asset, but it would be outside of the town's Like it wouldn't be a municipal superintendent taking care of another building. It would be a separate organization. And that is done, it's not like we're first, that is done in other communities, and for us, is the discussion is to see what is it gonna take, like, you need to figure out if what's even possible.
I mean,
A plan B, right?
And then, expenses for tourism this year, we're looking at about $20,000, so that would eat up the whole 15,000 budget, and then. Looking at a community partnership for grants, to do a summer promotional video. We do have a winter one done, that was about 3 years ago already, we've never had a summer one done. So that will be our next, big project for there.
The actual chamber did that video.
They helped with that, yeah.
I actually think they actually did it. I don't think that was the CDC.
There's Skidooing one, yeah, I think the Skidooing one, they helped with that. And then, doctor recruitment retention, we've had some programs in the past, helped, recruit doctors. We did get the money back last year, gave it back to the partners. This year, we're looking at $10,000, and that would help to invite university students, grad students. They're looking for a job or a community to make connections and start their practice. So that would be to help, like, invite them to come to the community. We could tour them around, put them in the hotel.
it was I can't remember if it was all over BC, there was a community that took a different tack, and they hired the doctors to work for the community, and the community hired people to do all the paperwork for them. They hired like some 6 or 8 doctors, like right now. So it's a definite, I think it's the first in Canada that seems to be working. Something like that.
Yeah, well, we've had presentations from the University of Manitoba about engaging students coming, finishing their, their, what do they, no, like their nurse practitioners and stuff like that. And if we have a little bit of sort of support funding that maybe we can help subsidize to bring them into the community and try to keep them in the community. All the other lists, I'm not a huge, I think that we're this is sort of overstepping healthcare. I think there's part of their job to recruit, but I think we have to do it
The one
too.
out west, I mean, the community was, they were looking after the receivables,
Yeah,
paying doctors. Good model.
And then we're looking at the possible part-time summer student this year, 6,500. I've been in communication with UCN for their business program and community development. There could be an opportunity there to give one of the students a project or help them to develop a project that we could be working on.
okay. So I guess at the end of the day though, we're sort of less running your bank balance to zero, based on the request. So if you look at, there's $80,000 in the bank, but if you look at if you kind of figure out the numbers, we were about $60,000 less revenue than expenses are around there. So, but the board figured that based on the fact that we're not 100% sure on some of these bigger numbers, that we would leave it as it is for now, and there's some opportunity to change directions if necessary. But it would actually end up bringing the board or your CDC would end up requesting more funding for 2026 when it comes forward, because the bank balance would be zero this year. Any questions for Jonathan?
So how are you gonna promote the store? I think you said the storefront improvement program.
So in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce will be in discussion. We have a template right now that's like just inviting business owners to apply to the program. And then we're offering, it would be $1,500 per business or up to a certain amount. So if it's 10% of their project, then that would be $1,500. We'll put it in the paper, we'll advertise, use social media,
But
use
if-
radio.
Have you laid out all the plans around that yet, though? Like, is it very
I'll
detailed?
be meeting with the chamber to talk about that and get a proposal.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah, the reason I ask is you're budgeting 15,000 for it this year, which is double last year, and in the last 2 years you spent $500.
Yeah,
So it just seems like I'm kind of just curious why, like, you're doubling your ask when you haven't come even close to the previous ask.
actually, I think this program was run by the chamber at one time.
Yeah.
And so the money was out of the chamber, and I think the discussion at the board meeting is that this is CKP. This is the CDC's contribution to the program, but it has to be in partnership with the chamber because it's about them supporting that Pride downtown, so having some money to be able to seed that program. But I do believe this is the chamber's sort of pathway. I do know that we did have a grant, and I don't know where it's in here, but we did have a grant a number of years ago where we did something similar. Through that was through the chamber. It was all the chamber that they did something similar. I think that's from discussion with, at our CDC meeting with Dan, is that we have to sort of firm that up and know what we're doing.
Councillor Allen, what did the chamber spend, any idea last year on this program?
No idea. I don't think there was
yeah, last year there wasn't much for downtown beautification.
I don't think they provided it for at
Mostly
least 3
the
years.
community renewal corp took care of that.
Yeah, I think it's been at least 3 years since that was offered.
Okay. Like, I'm all for it, it's something actually I campaigned about, but I mean, if we're not gonna spend the money, I don't wanna budget it either.
Yeah. Well, our goal is to spend it, so.
Right, yeah, our goal is to.
And I
wrap up
think-
that program.
I think the goal too, though, the discussion is not just that the CDC is the only one contributing to that. It's sort of how can this money leverage the chamber, leverage the DMC to make this a better program than just somebody building replacing a door on the front of their vehicle, on the front of their building or something. So I think there's a little bit more work to do there. Any other questions with that? Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. I guess we're into, did you have something? You're not on our agenda. Or you just-
No, I know, I just discovered that, but I was told to come for trappers, so I don't know what it's.
Does anybody have any issues with having trappers?
I'll be like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
I have
no
a
problem.
babysitter.
Come on up, Jen.
And I like making things and be a little less formal, so. I guess we're here talking money.
There's a budget meeting here.
Yeah. So no, I was just asked because we didn't want to miss the opportunity. I think for Trappers Festival, first we need to reiterate that the support we do receive from the town of Pot is fairly substantial. And appreciated. So if it's budget talks, we definitely don't want to see anything go away. Cash wise, I know that our chair, Lori, had mentioned, if anyone wants to give us more cash, we're certainly not going to say no. But I feel like, as an executive, we're talking about those kind of things. It's not necessarily cash. The one thing the town of the Pod does, that we can't even put a price tag on, I know finance can, but we can't in terms of what we appreciate is all the town work that goes in from the public works department, like those guys, hands down. If we had to price that out and pay for the work that they do, we probably wouldn't have a festival. That's how important it is. So we certainly don't want to lose that.
Yeah, we're not talking about any reduction.
Yeah,
So what
and-
we're saying is that if there's something specific. and we-
I understand that. I just want to lay that groundwork that we actually, we really value what you guys already do. The 750 cast contribution goes towards Family Fun because, that's an event that we feel like is community based. The insurance coverage is valuable. I think for us moving forward, obviously, there's always room, like I said, to get cash. I mean, we pay out $60,000 as our dog races. There's like, close to $50,000 in prize money there alone to draw those dog mushers in. So the expenses are there. Cash is great. That's from year to year, but I think long-term in a budget process, if Trafford was looking at something, and I briefly mentioned it the other day, is that permanent fort that we would like to do, the revitalization of the Devon Park area through that. So conversation around potentially supporting Trappers could be in the groundwork for that. Like, I don't have a price tag for that, but you know, looking at cost plans, blueprints, you know, I know the town, you guys were really on board when we talked about this a couple years ago. Of course, we're all volunteers and life happens and we don't really bring it back because we don't have a lot of dollars here to, okay, we're gonna take $20,000 and do a cost assessment and all of that. We haven't got to that point as an organization. So I think if we were looking at any support moving forward or increases in that, it would be in those areas to work in partnership to ensure that we could potentially make that project happen.
As I mentioned that they were chatting, I know I've spoken to the Rotary as well, and they're coming up on a big anniversary. I don't know which one it is. It's 100 or 125 or something like that. They're looking to put in a legacy project and they're talking about Sunset Park. And I think maybe this is where we should look at, see if we can get a few of the groups together and see how we can actually, if there's a contribution that the town can do, then we can sort of move that into one program. And I think the idea about the fort is a great idea.
Yeah, and I think when we looked at what we could potentially come to the table and say, well, what would be an ask or how would you help us? I think from year to year with the festival running the way it does, it runs very well. And the support that we get from you guys is immeasurable. Like it's so valuable and important that we don't want to rock that boat. So I think moving forward in terms of things that festival would look at, you know, we've talked about a permanent staff member. We've talked about things like that we just don't have in the budget right now. But the long-term goal has been for a number of years back in, you know, when Sunny had come up with the idea of having this fort and this permanent tourist destination. But we don't really have built-in dollars for assessments or engineering and things like that. So that kind of partnership, I mean, if we're entertaining any kind of increase or support, it would be, we would certainly appreciate it on that end. So whether, and I know in our initial discussion when we presented a couple of years ago, it was bringing in key stakeholders and community groups. So that's sort of what we're throwing back on the table as, if you're going to invest further in Trappers, let's look at that long-term.
Just compliment all the volunteers. It's great for the community. I know the town with the in-kind we're talking was it's in excess of $20,000.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah, or maybe a bit more. For your budget that you're working on when is your budget done? Can we get a copy of last year's budget, what you budgeted for?
Yeah, we've got our budget. We do a tentative budget initially going in. We pass it, the new board takes over in May. Then we start working budget process by September. We pass our first budget. It's always malleable after that. If we have to pass one. We can certainly send that over. We're just in audit process right now.
I'd say for last year's.
Yeah, we're in audit process right now. So as soon as it's done, we can certainly send it to contribute. We're running any year we're about 180.
Give us a bit of insight on
Yeah.
the operations and what you're
For sure.
against and all that.
Yeah, we run about $180,000 to run the festival overall, and we end up sitting, I mean, and this isn't exact numbers, but if we're sitting at $60,000 going into a future festival, $60,000 to $100,000, we feel confident that, you know, we're gonna be able to pull off what we need to pull off, because we don't wanna deplete that. And right now we've been hovering on that. COVID didn't hit us as hard as it hit many of the events, so we were lucky there. And we've had some substantial, like our business community and sponsors have ensured that the business. Yeah, for sure, we can get you that, no problem. And then moving forward, I think that's where we're kind of on the table, because just saying, hey, give us 20 grand so we can do something is not really something that we're necessarily in a position where we're not saying we can't afford to do that right now. We're looking at long-term things that we don't have budgeted dollars for.
Does the Trappers Board have the ability to apply for some of these extra grants that could possibly go towards the fort that maybe we couldn't apply for?
We haven't looked in detail on what we've come across and looked, because we're always looking at grants for
Yeah.
all of our events.
Yeah.
We run into some issues where we're not qualifying for them for a number of reasons, but with TPCRC, they've been able to do some grant applications on our behalf. Destination marketing, we didn't apply the last 2 years inadvertently. We meant to. We really increased our ice sport build. So we will be looking at applying through destination marketing for some stuff. So really, you know, I don't want to say we're gonna do this, this, and this, because May is gonna come around and it's a whole new board, or potentially a whole new board. But the conversations for all those things happen after May. But grant applications, but there and again, we run into an issue where, much like any other organization, you're volunteers, right? So we talk about doing it, and then we don't necessarily have one person who's got an excessive amount of time. So one of the things we entertain and talk about also is employing someone, but that's also a dollar thing too, right? Can we actually afford to put someone on payroll for more than 6 months? So those are our up and down conversations. But I know that the spirit behind moving that permanent fort into place and that tourism draw and revitalizing that downtown, or the riverfront area is something that is always in the back of our minds. And when we look at potential connections through something like the municipality that may have access to things we could need that would fall in kind,
Mhm.
would be super beneficial versus just saying, here, give us another 20 grand cap. Our 750 is good. We like our $750. Thank you. We like all the other stuff, so we don't want to.
Perfect.
But that's it. We just want to make sure we came and we talked about that, and didn't miss the opportunity. But thanks for letting me butt in. Sorry, and interfering with your.
I have a question.
Oh, of course you do.
So you answered my question about the DMC, so thank you on that. But the other question I had, and from being with the paper and with the grant or the sponsorship with the festival, this 750 and this 16 grand of in kind, how long has that been the same as?
The 750, probably since I've been around, that little cash, that monetary donation, so it's been the same. The 16,000, I said, like, I think that number is probably low and it would fluctuate from year to year. I mean, you guys would be able to better price out, like Gary said. You know, I'm pretty sure that pushes in excess of $20,000 because the insurance cost alone, the insurance rider alone, I think sits about $3,000 or $4,000. So I think that dollar value, we can't say stayed the same. It goes up or down depending. This year we have a much bigger fort.
But it's the same stuff
that's-
that you're asking for in kind.
Absolutely, like that hasn't changed. It's the insurance rider, it's the ability for the town cruise, it's the free skate at the arena, and then that 750 cash. That hasn't changed. And there hasn't been a push on our end to change it. Because like I said, the value that we have for the big bulk, the in-kind stuff that the town does for us, we can. Like, if it means we stay at 750 for another 10 years, just give us our 750, we'll carry on. Because the value of what you guys do for us is immeasurable. Like, we literally couldn't do a festival the way we do it without the town of Ba and the guys doing it.
The in-kind portion was reassessed either 2 or 3 years ago by Sam. Wasn't it 2 or 3 years ago that we reassessed the value of what that in-kind grant was?
Yeah, I think we moved
Yeah.
it up slightly just to make sure we were covered.
Yeah.
There's huge fluctuations year by year.
Yeah,
We're getting way more efficient at.
they're getting more efficient and then we have bigger plans, so it kind of balances itself out. So we give them more work to do.
Perfect.
So yeah, that's it.
Anybody else have anything?
Figure.
All right, thanks, Jen.
Thank you. Have fun figuring out where to spend your money.
Oh, we don't have any problem figuring out where to spend it. That's not a problem at all. Okay, wanna go to the financial plan, I guess?
Sure.
Okay, so everything that we talked about at the last meeting that you guys wanted to be re-included in the budget, that has happened. On page 1, again, I just want to point out our other revenues of the $12 million, that $6 million that is coming from ACAP, which is the Airport Capital Assistance Program for the capital projects that you'll see down in the expenditures under fiscal services of 6.66 million. So a lot of that is for all the projects that are going on at the airport, and we wouldn't be able to do a lot of that stuff if it wasn't for ACAP. I can't remember what we had for,
Conditional grants, just, take the hat off to the provincial government for the increase there, the $2.4 million. Yes, on page 2. That's a nice increase. See, protective services is about 500,000, 575,000 increase, but you can kind of see policing, takes about 270 of that. Fire about, 186. Does fire include CSOs or CSOs are under police?
protective services includes the CSOs.
Yeah, but under which line, 2100 or 2400 or
It's under 2660.
26? Oh, okay, sorry. CSO.
Yeah, so it's included in the
Yeah.
whole $4.2 million total, but it's
Yeah.
just a separate line there. Speaker on page 3 now.
Yeah, I don't know how, if you want to walk us each page, that's what we're doing.
No, I just was curious if that was the page you were looking at. Page 3 is what you were looking at.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone has any questions with regards to what's being presented for the budget, but the biggest thing that I wanted to point out is after, on page 7, after the other increases were put in, we are still sitting at a decrease on residential of 1.595 mils and 2.557 mils for the commercial properties. We've now received the school tax information, so everything in here is final as far as the school taxes and
School levy is what?
so. You mean like last year compared to this year?
Yeah,
It actually makes up that difference pretty much, right?
I'm sorry.
It almost makes up the difference between where we're at as a total budget from what the reduction is in KSD, almost gives us that
savings.
good savings in the budget,
No,
because it went from 15 to 14, not 14 exact numbers, but it
There was-
went down to 1.5.
There were some other changes. But the provincial levy went from $501,000 last year to $505,000 this year. And KSD went from 2 million to 3.1. So the reason that it looks like the mill rate has gone down is because total assessments have gone up.
So our community increase in assessed value about $12 million, which then, if you remember that formula, actually lowers your overall mill rate.
Instead of the MMF, they jump in that.
Well, yeah, probably.
Some of it was,
Yeah.
there was a big increase there.
So in reality, school, if you're just looking dollars to dollars, they didn't reduce their budget coming across. But if they keep it the same and our community is worth more money, the mill rate would drop.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Was the mill rate difference.
Sorry, Randy, I didn't quite understand.
I didn't word it very well
Sorry.
either.
Yeah, the
Mumble.
overall increase was 10.7 million in assessed value. So I know that some of the people had provided some things to present here today, and I just want to let you know, CDC, what they presented is built into this budget, so unless anyone has any objections to what they're presenting.
No, I just think that the thing to keep in mind with the CDC is that if they actually execute everything they said they're gonna do, they're eating their own reserve.
Yeah.
So they have 88,000 or something in their reserve right now.
And
Or
they're
in their own
budgeting
bank
for
account.
an $85,000 deficit.
CDC's in there, anything for the ag.
Only $1,000, which is what we've given to them for years on end.
Okay.
So that's, and then. And again, for trappers, it's the same that we've always provided, so if we wanted to maybe consider the idea of a permanent structure, then maybe we want to consider doing.
And they come back with a good plan.
Yeah, I think we have to go, I think we have to actually, my thinking on that is we need to meet with Rotary and see if we can create a partnerships there, and if there's some community contributions, then we do it that way. Move it to Rotary to actually manage it, and ours is a financial contribution so that we're not having to take on the work. They're looking for a project anyways. My only other question was, I know, OID is their big, anniversary this year. I think it's 75 or 50 years. I think it might be 50 years of Pasquatic Indigenous Days. So I know we don't have anything in the budget for that. But I suggest that we put at least a few $1,000s to support something. I'm not sure what, I don't know if we reached out to them, but partnering with them on something, especially if we bring in those riders, those Indigenous riders. I hear that's pretty exciting. So maybe that's something we can earmark. The other thing that I don't know if it's in here, and I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but the animal shelter,
We do have,
how much should we put in for them?
That's at 15. It
I
was
believe
8
they
before.
requested 15, yes, they did.
Yeah,
I was thinking, because those guys do a lot of work in our community. This is where, if we're going to spend a little extra money, we should bump up they're taking care of a lot of stray cats. I'm sure all of council is getting many calls about the shelter being full and the stress that they're trying to manage. So maybe we need to. And I know they offload a lot of the work that Sam and his crews have to do with regards to dog catchers, so maybe we need to move there. What do we give them right now?
8. We normally give them, well, we've given them 8 the last few
Should,
years.
should we give them 20?
They've requested 15. I know you guys asked for a copy of the donation request, which I've included here. It's number 3 on your agenda. I'm not sure if anyone's had a chance to review that. But that was the request.
I was absent at the last council, we just for reference the rest of the agenda here of the different tasks from different departments. Are those at all included in any of this?
Some of it is, some of it isn't. Like, for example, the animal shelter one is. Some of the other things that the department managers are here to discuss with you today are
You're gonna be here to tell us which ones.
The-
not. Correct.
The animal shelter, so what did we include today? And when you look at their financials, they are at least $12,000 in the hole. So should we bump up their? I'm suggesting we bump it up. They're actually doing a service for our community.
There's no problem with 15 at this point.
Like, all these do a service for community in some form. I don't see what warrants 150% increase. I'm with good with 15 as well.
Well, I see that we have people, I mean, it's either lands on the dog catcher or goes to the animal shelter.
and they're always actively fundraising,
There
like they're always
There isn't
fundraising.
any groups of asked for money that don't do a good job.
That's what I mean. I don't mean that, like. Okay, so
It is
whatever,
to help everybody, but we have to.
So
spread it around.
we put 12 in there, we're gonna move it up to 15?
No, there's 15 in there. We've done 8 in the previous.
Okay,
What's upset.
okay, so 15 for them.
And that's.
Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
I would get more, but I support 15.
One idea. Currently, the town collects all the tag fees right now, and it's sort of on a honor system. And I don't think it generates, I have to look at the revenue numbers on that. I don't think it's a lot, but perhaps for a small organization like them, if they were the ones to drive the licensing,
That's a great idea.
perhaps they could use that as a method to, right? If you know your money's going to the shelter specifically,
No, that's a great idea.
so that's something maybe we can discuss as
And
well.
the bicycle license too.
I still have some licenses for that if you need.
We only budget $1,500 a year for the dog tags.
And
it
that may,
fluctuates from about maybe
but
17.
it might drive his number up though, that's.
They can,
that's the
they can
thing.
go door to
Might
door,
drive that
and if you know
number up.
it's going to the shelter, I think.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
But at least in that case, like, just so council knows, we're not losing a ton of money
Yeah.
there if we give it up, like,
No,
it's
I think
not.
that's, so that's, maybe we talked to him about that.
I think that's great. I think that's a great idea as well. The only question I would have is how you would communicate to, I'm assuming, our community safety officers who has a tag and who doesn't, who has a license for an animal who doesn't.
We had, if there was sharing of
Information sharing.
the master document, we
I
could
just want to
probably,
confirm that that would, that there's a way that that would.
there's a logistical aspect we have to overcome.
Yeah.
Part of the bylaw actually says that it has to be wearing the tag, and if it's missing a tag, that counts as the fine as
Yeah.
well, so they should be wearing the tag.
An amendment to the bylaw.
So we might have to do some follow-up on that.
Yeah,
That's
just,
the logistics on that,
Good idea.
but yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. Okay, so we're good with that. Combination tax,
You guys are requesting information about comparisons between the different.
yeah, it looks like
communities.
it's 5%.
Yeah, it seems like that's pretty standard. Thompson's trying to go for an increase, but they haven't heard back on whether or not it will be accepted.
What would a 1% increase be on our, like, if we went from 5 to 6? How much money is that?
For using the 1%.
Yeah,
Regardless of what the amount is, I wouldn't be in favor of raising it. We're, want to try and keep a level playing field.
well,
only
we don't, you're not
$2,000.
competing between Flin Flon and Thompson.
No, I'm talking about across the river.
Well,
Combination tax, people do.
is it?
It's only 2,000
Oh, really? Okay,
for 1%.
I was just curious. Okay, so we've done that. Northern Woods water thing,
You guys are requesting information with regards to that because they have asked for a donation this year. Northern Woods has asked for $2,400 according to their email. So this is the request that they sent in for that. And you also asked me to check with CDC on whether or not they felt that it would be a good contribution. Do you want me to just read this out to you?
the whole thing, no, I read that.
Right.
Sing it.
So really, it's about, it's just driving that RV group through the town of the Baugh and
Yeah, like,
through that
I
route.
don't know if you want to speak to this at all, Jonathan, but there's like a couple of magazines that we show up in that are part of, I think, the tourism side of it. And there's many, many communities throughout Manitoba that are,
And we did it last year.
no, this is something new, even though there's
Yeah,
like a ton in there first.
The current advertisements right now are free that they've offered to the community. If you want a whole page or half a page, that's where that membership comes in and you
Oh,
get
okay.
more promotion to your community. But these magazines have been around for years.
Okay, so I'm thinking not this year.
But on the tourism standpoint, like I've been in contact with their board and exec, and like we promote Northern Woods and the water highways anyways, like through tourism. So whether or not you wanted to go for membership or just continue to do what we're doing right now.
I think we just do what we're doing for now. You guys okay with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'd rather
Okay.
give the $2,400 towards the animal shelter than a magazine ad.
Okay, so put it towards it.
You did mention you wanted to donate towards, Prospect Indian Days, but there wasn't a suggestion on an amount that you guys just put in here for that.
I don't know what the amount is. I figured like $2,500 or something, but I have no idea. Maybe we could reach out to them and see if we could sponsor an event, but I have no idea. But it is a huge driver.
So that money, the 2,400 was in there for, was.
No, it was?
Was,
Yes,
Okay,
so we can keep that in the basket.
yeah. Right.
okay, handy van,
wanted to see their request as well and ask if there was something else they could do. This is the email that, the office manager had sent back to us, and I just like everyone to keep in mind that she's very conscientious of the budget, so she's doesn't want to ask necessarily for more money, even if they need it, simply because she understands how
Yeah.
all this taxation stuff works. I mean, she used to be the CAO, so she definitely is always counting pennies and trying to spread things as far as she possibly can and do more with less.
I think
we covered it.
covered up with the AMM.
Yeah,
Like it was it 1980?
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, we'll put together a briefing note for the appropriate minister to try to meet up during AMM. And as I think Councillor Hopper has mentioned, we cover the losses anyways. If we continue doing what we need to do, supporting them through the garage. If they're not looking for anything, you know, at the end of the day, we're covering it anyway, so.
So keep it where we have it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The library, so you guys were asking at your last council meeting information on this $350. So I have provided an updated copy of her budget that she gave to me. I think there was just a couple of minor changes in comparison to what she presented. I've also provided you a copy with what was given to us for the 2024 budget. Now, I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but the request came in at $350 less than the year before. So I'm not sure if that was just an error on part of her predecessor that.
Is there anything we need to do there, I guess, like it just?
I don't think so. Like in reading the emails that went to the library director at the time, I think that the library should have come back to us in September and requested the 350. That's how I'm reading it. At this point, the grant has been done, the submission's been made, they lost that $6,000. I think just going forward, we need to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And maybe we get a copy of that calculation they're referring to in these emails so that we can assess whether or not, if there's been an error that we need to help correct so they don't lose that funding in the future. I'm not really sure what happened here, but this was a question that came up at the last council meeting when she presented. So this is the answer as to exactly what happened. And I think maybe it was just probably a miscommunication. And it was an unfortunate event.
Well, it says that the decrease, so I'm still not 100% clear on this, the decrease of us giving them less money caused them to lose more money?
That is what their funder is saying. So it has something to do with a stability calculation that they use. We actually provided the calculation.
But what they requested last year, we gave to them.
Yes, 100%, but they requested $350 less than the year before. And they were told in 2023, I think it is, that they needed to ensure that their funders retained at least at minimum what they were given in 2023.
Right.
And that didn't happen because the budget that was presented to us was $350 less than 2023.
Which is probably the mileage.
I think it was just an error.
So because they requested 350, we approved 350 less,
Correct,
caused us to lose a grant.
correct.
That's used to stabilize their organization, which I think is another issue sheet or another briefing note that needs to go to the libraries guys, because that makes absolutely no sense.
I know. So just so that you guys had clarification on that, but I think, again, to overcome that in the future, we'll try and get a copy of the calculation. Make sure that it's reviewed when the budget is sent in so that we can just help them ensure that this doesn't happen again. Now that we know that they're expecting this to be at the same level, we can ensure that doesn't happen.
And I appreciate the list of repairs that needed to be done. That was sent by, so those that included in the budget to get that fixed ASAP.
We have increased the repairs and maintenance budget for the library, and I had a discussion with her the other day, letting her know that please let us know anything that's going on with the library so we can ensure that we get our maintenance stuff over there and get it looked at.
And the other thing is that if we need long-term capital in that building, I'd suggest that their board actually start putting together a list of what they need to do over the next not just to fix it, but if you need to replace the HA or the air conditioning or the air exchanger or the carpet or repaint the whole building or whatever you happen to do. Then those big ticket items should be built into a long-term budget so that the appropriate reserves can be moved and saved for it. But also, we can also look to see if there's grants come available that we can chase a grant to help pay for that and be ready for it.
But their sign to light up.
And also she has sent the list of, we showed that to me, and I forwarded it to you.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, so at the last budget meeting, you guys requested more information about the school sign, so Tanvir and Sam are here to speak to, and they've also provided a map of where each one of these signs are being proposed.
Thank you, Laura.
So I have a question.
Absolutely, yeah.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was gonna say, just kind of wherever you guys would like to start.
Yeah, well, I think, let's start. I think the crossroads that have stop signs or short signs don't need those signs. So if you look at the Opasco Times, the stuff going, or the Opasco Times, Opasco School,
Yeah.
the stuff going west, those two roads, I don't know what, 8th Street and 9th Street, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I don't believe those need actually signs because they have stop signs right there. So the reason why we talked about the long roads like Settee and such is that there's no stop signs. So same thing when you look at around Kelsey School, Stewart Street, Hyatt Street, that little street coming off of Cathedral.
Yeah, 6, technically it's.
I don't think those need actually, school signs, slow down signs. I think you need Settee and Hogan. And when you look at NBCI, I think you need Grace Lake Road and Cathedral, maybe Crosland.
Swan River. They don't have all these signs like around in front of their secondary school and as well as Taylor School. I haven't went past Ecole Swatter herself, and I don't remember what the other one's called anymore. But they don't have this amount. Is this regulation that we need this? many?
Yes, whenever you're doing a cross street, they sort of recommend, so like if you're coming from Elk Row, coming up 8th or 9th, and were to turn into Constant, you technically wouldn't know that you're in a school zone. You could argue.
Is it a recommendation or is it mandatory?
I want to say mandatory based on what we've read. We've tried to kind of thin it back as much as we can. And also, I guess another question, but we can stay on this topic. But the other question was some suggestion of perhaps in front of the arena was also raised as also part of the school zones, and because of where Kelsey School is located, we could extend.
Well, I say all the way down Cathedral, from one end to the other.
So as far as technically we're allowed to go, it would be 150 from the maximum distance of the property line from Kelsey.
Meters?
Yeah, 150 meters, sorry. So that would bring us somewhere, Saint Antoine roughly would be, so the Cathedral Apartments, Saint Antoine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that stretch.
Yeah, because we have the 4-way so that people are picking up speed. You could start from about there and carry that all the way through till Grumbox, basically.
Councilor Hopper?
This expenses that in the budget,
Yes.
do it.
I think that's a waste of money to do those cross streets. So I don't have a problem with budgeting it, but having
Only
a
saving.
street that's 100 feet long, that doesn't make any sense to put up all the signs.
But if we don't have them, then it's not a warning that that speed change is coming.
Well, look at Kelsey School Division, guys. So you're telling me that we're gonna put up a sign between Cathedral and Hogan on that little street? Like, you can't even get going 30 kilometers an hour on that street.
Oh, so the reason why that's there, just to identify that you've entered the school zone. If we go back to, let's say, Saint Antoine and come up Cathedral that way, we would
Oh,
still,
okay.
you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
there's just no.
Yeah, okay, I understand that, yeah.
So once you turn on.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Paul, for what's cost of sign installation.
Yeah,
So what we have presented right now is 17 to 18,000 plus taxes, not including the installation costs. We do have that post auger attachment for the just recently delivered the skid steer. So that should significantly increase the speed if we wanted to turn. I know council thought about maybe contracting, which we can definitely look at as well. But right there, the signage we currently have 17 to 18,000. If we go to add Mary Duncan to it. We left it as like potentially a phase two. That's another $5,000 to $6,000 for just Mary Duncan. And if we wanted to add a little bit more signage for Cathedral, like if we want to look at doing St. Antoine, that stretch there, we'd have to reconfigure some of this, but that would add another probably 1,500 to 2,000 signage.
And none of these provide this actual speed that someone's going, correct?
No.
No, these are just,
Yeah.
there's no.
Good start. Yeah, I think, yeah, so we'll just go forward with it. Thanks for the clarification. I was never thought about that. I was thinking it was for those roads, but you're right. If you came off that road, you wouldn't know.
Also, the arena poses another concern, sorry.
No.
The arena presents another concern because we try to think like if you're coming from out of the community where we just drive to the arena and you come out of the arena, we extend that area, we have to put a couple 30 signs just as a reminder.
Yeah.
Is there a possibility, although it's not school signage, to reduce the speed limit around the New Spray Park area? There's a lot of kids that kind of run and
Good idea.
are excited by water, and with the potential expansion of Centennial Park, is that an area we can consider, or should we wrap that under UCN to encompass that area?
Regardless of whether the UCN would, UCN, if we would qualify, if it could qualify as the schools that we could potentially look at. So there's already a 4-way stop at that intersection, which has done a great job. The road's not in great shape. She'll kind of also slows people down. We could also use traffic calming devices in the area, a couple of speed bumps might go a long way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Because even right now, something that we've been talking about is when you cross 7th Street from UCN towards the school, like the walking path, technically.
Yeah.
That's a pretty busy area, and if it wasn't for that huge hump, that's naturally.
Is that what you-
My naturals, my,
Well, we have
The cliff, you mean?
yeah.
And we've had a request a couple of times now at this table with regards to that crosswalk for 7th Street to UCN coming from coming from the like Valhalla area and connecting those walking paths to be able to walk across that street. So I think there's maybe if we put a little bit of extra money in to just pick up these last ones, let's council manage, and maybe we can even just put those signs like the playground signs where if there's a playground, you just put up a 30 sign. And that's all that is needs. It's just always 30. It's not, there's no other signs around. And that then sort of starts questioning, you drive down Cathedral today. And the snow we got, and I know the guys are doing a great job. But should we allow parking on that road? Because if you look at one section, there's no parking, one section there is parking. And one section there is no parking, which I think because the school bus used to pick up there. So I don't know if we need to sort of revisit all of that stuff.
So no parking all the way up to 7th? From the arena to 7th then? Make
Well, at
that,
least on one side,
make the west side of the street no parking?
yeah.
So back to the school signs.
Yeah, I think we're going forward. What we were bringing up extra, though, Councillor Hopper, is that you might have to budget a little bit of extra money to pick up these other things in our budget discussion. That's what I was talking about.
Could you squeeze in?
Councillor Allen?
We did it ourselves, yeah.
I just like to say, I'd like to see Mary Duncan included as well.
Sure.
Yeah, so if we do it internally and give us a little bit of grace with the pace in which we install, we can, with the budgeted amount that we have on the books, we could include Mary Duncan as well. And maybe we'll have to sit and talk a little bit about these peripheral items. Also, the school division asked if we could maybe present to them, the school board, some of these ideas before we move forward.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that
They're interested in cost sharing, are they?
Well, I also think
kind of want to put words in his mouth.
So I have another solution for lowering costs and the number of signs. Something that was kind of an interest to me was residential zones being identified as 30-kilometer zones. And that way you'd only have to put the 30-kilometer zones on the ones that aren't residential streets.
We've seen some communities go just to rural 40 for the whole town, and then they only bring signs at the beginning of the community. So sort of,
But we know we'd have arguments with 3rd Street and 7th Street, Gordon Avenue, Fisher, those being a 30 or a 40. So if we could identify as residentials as 30, Because most of the schools do fall in residentials, except for the few that you would have to then signage, right? It would lower that signage requirement and the visual noise, as you were, I think you were a little bit concerned with, is how many signs are up to tell everyone.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of airing back.
That is a lot of
We
signs.
got a little
That's
carried away. We
is
had more before, but we,
it easier to change bylaw, make residential
Yeah, I
zones
agree.
30
Yeah.
and then have only signage for the areas that would be 50s.
it's an interesting proposal, I guess, the idea to.
Proposal.
How do you enforce the 30 kilometers zone in residential zone?
The same way we enforce the 50s, right? When we drive into town, it says all speed is 50 unless otherwise posted. We would then leave the 50, but then you'd also have the 30
Yeah,
identified.
some communities have a sign like at the edge, like as you enter the residential, yeah.
And yeah, for the first little while, logistically, it would be pretty difficult to enforce, but it becomes the new norm of you're in a residential zone. Most residential areas don't support over 30 kilometers an hour, especially in the winter time. So it's like clean up that idea.
Yeah, so let's put some money, let's make sure we have enough money to pick up some of these few other ideas. I think we're supporting the signs. Maybe what we have to do is strike up a little subcommittee, if you need some support from us, but I guess you get the intent. We do want to improve, traffic in the community, so.
So to add Mary Duncan in there, you say you have the resources for that?
Yeah, we have the budget for the signage, and the installation will be in-house, so it should be well within that 65.
Okay, everybody's cool with signs?
And just to be clear, you said that that's just for the signs, it's not for not including installation.
Correct. But we have, with the post hole digger with the new skid steer,
But not the
staff is-
cement or whatever, like not all that, that's not included, or whatever you use. Okay.
we just would use a bag, so mix it on site sort of thing. Yeah, so there was, I had a list, I know that was the only thing sort of on my topic, but there was a list that was given. What items that potentially you guys want to talk about, or if you guys want me to go through any of the, like flag poles, fire break.
Sure, go for it.
Okay, yeah, so I'll fire through some.
Tell us what's in the budget already, Laura, when he says what he's asking, and what's not, hasn't been included, please.
Some of it is just clarification as well. So I'll start with the flag poles. I know there was some discussion, watched the last council meeting regarding sort of reimagining the front, and maybe there's some discussion, maybe fixing the front should be our first priority, and maybe having the flags hanging on the building perhaps would be another option to kind of lower costs, but it was kind of unclear in terms of the direction. We're totally open to the idea of reimagining the front. One of our biggest concerns with saying that is that ramp. Like once we started to pull that concrete out and rip everything apart, we would probably have to adhere to the code of the day. And that ramp currently would not meet code of the day. So if we were doing any alterations there, we would have to redesign sort of whether it comes from sort of the opposite side of the building and wraps around a different way. In saying that, that may require some engineering work and some maybe some architectural work as well. I just don't know what appetite you guys have for something like that. So one of the suggestions we were going to throw was Graham Construction, and we did a presentation about doing some work at the provincial building. So I'm sure they're doing some architectural work for the front of what that may look like. So I'm not sure if you guys would like us to get a quote maybe for just a simple rendition of what our options would be there or not.
I think reciprocal, if we're gonna be closing Hazelwood, maybe we have some room to negotiate.
That's a good idea.
Really?
We currently have 40,000 in the budget. That was just for the flagpoles, so the reimagine would have to. Yeah, increase that budget. But I don't know what you guys want to do.
Currently 40 though.
Correct.
Oh,
Is there
just
anything
one
in the-
comment on the ramp. We've talked about being an age-friendly community for a very long time. I can remember 15 years ago watching Mayor Herb Jakes try and struggle up the ramp in a wheelchair alongside Rogers Wiki, just to demonstrate that's not at all up to code. I think that, I'm not saying to do it this year, but I think that's something that should be addressed sooner rather than later. We should be respectful to our elders who have helped build this community, and that's one way.
With the rise in wrong.
I would not, yeah, we would need to, we did some rough calculations. It would need to be, it would go into the street, basically.
Well, you could redesign that.
Yeah, but along the side of the building, I think it could be
Yeah.
beautiful and out of the way a little bit. It could. Yeah, there's some other things. So if you guys would like us to, I guess what we could do is look into the poles off the side of the building. To see what that would look like and then figure out what we have left for a budget and then maybe get a quote from somebody. And then kind of get an idea where.
I think you have AutoCAD upstairs.
Well, Jackson used a pretty good consultant for that sort of did a building assessment, for the museum. I don't remember the guy's name on here, but, it was a very well done and I think he can do, that person looks like they do a bit of a building assessment as well. Maybe you engage that engineering firm or architectural firm and see if they can just tell us what's needed. I do agree with Councillor Allen, we shouldn't be avoiding those type of things if we know about it, and there is grant money out there to kind of fix that stuff.
So perhaps we should take that $40,000 and put it into an engineering study this year to redo the whole entire front, and then we can look for accessibility grants for that for next year.
Good idea.
Sure.
Also, the people, the gentleman that did a rendition for the church on the Rose, did a pretty decent job with that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that report that it's very
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
well done.
Uh,
So we don't want to do anything to fix up the front of our building and this year, just do an engineering study, and I would like, I think I would still like to do something.
I really just like the idea of spending $40,000 for someone to draw pictures.
Yeah.
I think that can be done by a contractor to say,
Yeah.
here's some ideas. And then at least we know what we can do. If they come back and say it's $80,000, well, then that's when we have the discussion. But I think we should have some renderings done up. We don't need to hire an engineer. Nothing.
yeah, I think rendering.
And you have
is
all
probably
that
better.
upstairs, so
Yeah.
you can take a week off.
But I think like, if you guys looked at Jackson, the report from the museum, what it does, it actually does some condition of your building as well, and sort of what's needed to be done, and they might give you some ideas on the stuff. I agree with council managers. I don't think that's a $40,000 bill. And I know you don't have any person upstairs right now that is an architect, or maybe we can get a student to come and help, but I'd still like us to actually do something and not just spend money on engineering.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll see if we can find a good rendering or talk to Jackson as well, yeah. There was discussion on the fire break. I believe Byron is going to look after, so there was discussion regarding a wildfire assessment being done. So I think we've kind of talked a little bit with that with Byron, so it'll be kind of the lead on that. Another item that we discussed was the holiday decor. There were some comments, I believe, about the large bulbs not being at the front, and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought we were in agreement that that was tacky and to avoid that, so my apologies. That wasn't
I don't know about that.
Well, I saw those at your house.
I promise those things are out of my place. So for the holiday, we had some issues with ordering the material in time, and also because we were late in the season trying to order last year. So what we'll do on our end is we will bring forward, once we have an idea for what we kind of are thinking, and then you guys can kind of have a look. And then we'll sort of just kind of go approval in that sense, because we think First Street in front of the municipal office by the two municipal signs is a good place to sort of lighten up a little bit to get some good, some views from the street. We also think the arena poses some really good opportunities, like on the entranceway of the foyer, and maybe some little bit of lighting there. Maybe even the lobby. I'm not sure, there's a lot of kids running around, so that might turn into a disaster, but.
So you're thinking for this fall like this?
Yeah.
Do we have money budgeted for it?
And all of those, the new lights, like it was myself, Desiree and Jen Cook, like we found a grant for all of that. And it was all through chamber. So I don't know if there is something. I know we're trying to spend money, but if there's still grants, you know.
The core grant might be difficult for us as we're not a nonprofit, so perhaps we can, but I can.
Maybe PBC or C or chamber.
Can work with this chamber or something.
One question I have, more for Laura, because I'm not exactly sure how budget end and start begins, but to me, the best time to buy a bunch of Christmas decorations would probably be January and blow them out. Is there a way to get that money?
They didn't have blow up features with them there because they take so long to get here. They ship from very far away. They
No,
didn't-
I'm saying they
they
probably
didn't
have stock, or at least something to look at. If we can maximize our dollars by being able to go into the new year.
Well, I think this is, we've always said that if staff needs or administration needs funding before the budget's approved, then ask and we will approve it, which we did with the skid steer. So I think, I agree, Councillor Allen, if with next year, if there's an opportunity at the end of the year where we see a big sale, make sure you bring that forward so that we can authorize spending on the sale part in January.
Next thing on my list I have is the cemetery runners. So I think there's probably a lack of communication perhaps from myself, regarding this matter. So in the cemetery, I have significant issues with sinking and shifting, that occurs over time. So based on the current bylaw, the town is not responsible for leveling these graves. However, this becomes a challenge when we're trying to keep the beautification of the cemetery kind of as a priority. So it's difficult for us sometimes to locate next of kin, and if we do, they're not anywhere kind of near here, so it becomes challenging. So our plan when we were looking at the cemetery runners was to hope to improve that process, so we have a stable ground for people to put their headstones on. We were supposed to partnership with that to increase the cost of those plots. So that's kind of where I dropped the ball a little bit. But I have reached out to Julie to ensure that when the fees and fine schedule comes out, that those plots that do have a runner, that there's a fee associated with it, so there's some cost recovery. So that's my fault.
So, Bull, are we still running?
Yeah,
It's just been frozen. Yeah, we
It's
don't.
not that, but it is still running.
Yeah.
Just on that, like I know a lot of the graves have sunken, cribbing has, families aren't around, I don't know if they have so-called perpetual care on it or, what's their policy in that, we just like, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, so I actually quoted it here just so because the town shall not be responsible for any maintenance to the foundation after install, including damage caused from a natural ground settlement or while carrying out regular maintenance of the cemetery. That's where our bylaw states. So something in other communities that they've done, that's something I've been talking with, is that they kind of did like a work review project where they brought again like a bunch of groups together. They brought equipment, they did it as like, they got sponsorship. Everyone sort of pitches in, it's like a really good for community.
But even from the town's part, there's some there, you're aware that you go out there, they're sunken, nothing other than that, and just a matter of putting some fill on it, some of those get ignored. But I think we've got coming in the spring and we'll be looking at the cemetery. Get the same out. No.
Mr. Legacy.
Yes. Oh, so, and then when he did it before, he did a like bang up job and that little things like that get looked after, so.
so well, on top of that, so like who takes care of like groundhogs and all that stuff out there?
We try to,
Is there an actual program for that, or is that just ad hoc?
sort of ad hoc. It's, we're a little bit limited legally what we're allowed to do to the groundhogs. So, we do our best within the limitations of the law.
What is the law around groundhogs?
Well, we can't poison them, I don't believe. We have to trap them. Which is, well, we can, after we trap them, we'll kind of deal with them like that, but yeah, we can't, it's it's something that's sort of gotten away, so we've made some strides on that. We caught a few last year and a few disappeared last year, so that was nice. So
Saw your hat.
what's that?
Yeah.
Saw your hat.
Yeah. So we're working on it. It's a work in progress, yeah.
So it sounds like we need to have a reserve to pay for improvements. Like say you have a grave that's been there 100 years, the family's long gone, no one around to maintain it. Somebody should be responsible for that maintenance.
Yeah, and there's
It becomes
something,
our part in a sense, right?
yeah,
Well, I think that what I think Sam mentioned though is that as per our bylaw, it's not ours.
Right.
But I agree with Councillor Manish, maybe we need to just start just doing it anyways and change our bylaw that we take care of some of that stuff and not just not do it because it tells us we don't do it.
And yeah, it's gonna cause a big gray area, because how do you know who is in town and could be caring for it and who isn't? So it does become a headache, but at the end of the day, we should be able to track down the families that have plots. If something's in a state of disrepair, no different than a house or
Yeah.
a fence or anything else, hey, your gravesite is in disrepair, can you please look after it? If they refuse, we take it on.
Do we have enough, funds to do that, to take?
No, the cemetery reserve is, way a little bit, limited.
We do have a reserve account and it currently has a balance of $20,500. The perpetual care fees that we collect on an annual basis go into this reserve fund, but again, they fluctuate depending upon purchasing of graves.
So this year, just asking council, is it maybe we should, bump up our spending on maintenance, just in general maintenance in the cemetery to sort of refresh it, like our most cherished park?
What do you have in there now?
There's 20,000 in the reserve, but there's still a maintenance budget for the cemetery.
Is that reserved particularly for the columbarium?
No, that's a completely
That's all by
separate reserve.
itself?
This is for the maintenance of the
And what's in
cemetery.
that one? And
For
are
the
we-
columbarium.
Yeah,
And
are
I
we-
think about 100, hang on here.
because it's almost full.
Double that.
So as a suggestion, we'll add another 20,000 earmark to, maintenance, upgrade, upkeep. But let's not, let's try to do something if there's areas that are sunken. And if we need to update our bylaw, our cemetery bylaw to reflect anything different, then we'll
Just
do
on that, I would be a little hesitant to update bylaws, just in case, because then someone's gonna come in and say, look, we have to do this, we should be able to have it so they don't have to say that.
Yeah, if we have to, the bylaw, but right now the bylaw says we don't do anything.
It says we're not responsible,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that we can't. take
Yeah, no, we can't.
responsibility, Right,
So we just do it.
and I think what we need to do is spend a good chunk of money to get it up to a level, so then the maintenance costs are, like, it's gonna hit us for the first few years, especially if Mr. Legacy is coming on, he can probably provide a report and say, here's my goals for this year, and we can easily then budget for that. We don't wanna just throw an additional
Yeah.
20,000, and then they say, well, we cut the grass 4 extra times.
Is there
We wanna have
a
some
shed out there and all that sort of stuff?
There's a little one in the corner, but, I believe the door has been removed a few times.
Sorry, what is the budget for the cemetery?
Hang on. $1,200.
That's wages.
That's wages, that's the materials,
That doesn't
that's,
go very far.
yeah. That's opening and closing graves, that's everything.
Upon
It's not
request,
just the-
sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Upon request from one of the citizens had a good point about, that we used to store material out there at some point, so if they did come out and wanted to do a little bit of leveling.
Yeah.
Whatever, so we think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I
to
think so
stockpile
too.
material.
And maybe that's what we part of the program.
Yeah, so I think that's something we definitely are going to, explore for this year.
So we're good for increasing that to 30,000, what we said?
20 extra, I think was the
Another
discussion.
20.
Is it 81 or 91 right there right now, or 92?
Sorry, what?
The total.
The current budget right now, 82,200. But that includes everything, opening and closing graves as well, it's not just the maintenance.
Probably for 30.
Which is a revenue as well.
Yes, yeah, there is an offset to that purchasing graves.
So I think we're saying that maybe we're kind of just pulling numbers out of the air, so we'll just sort of lean on you. Is 20 enough to?
20 will give us a good.
30 better? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I think, I wish Mr. Legacy was here to kind of also lean on his expertise, so, I think having him there this summer and knowing that you guys are comfortable with some additional spending there, I think that the extra 20 will go a long way to to make some headway there.
And we do have some room in our surplus anyway, so if we had to, if we need more than 20, I think you should come to council looking for additional funds, just. If
Yeah.
more is required.
I think we all agree of the importance of that space and, yeah.
And if we don't, like, we haven't put away for the Columbia, I can't say it now again,
Columbarium.
for the last 2 years. And if it's almost full, that's a huge expense.
There is a certain portion of that goes towards that every year, but I guess it's based on the sales, but it's cents.
Yeah,
So it's just interest earned. That's what we're looking
Yeah.
at. This is roughly $5,000 a year.
and I thought that there was only one level that was left 2 years ago.
Yeah, I
3 years
was
ago.
wanting to purchase it because it was the very bottom
Yeah.
level, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it sold?
I don't believe it is.
There's a few empty spots still.
So what happens if we don't have any room, then we just don't have any to sell?
So the idea, I believe, when I first started, I believe the maintenance director was just putting this into play. The idea was that there was enough sales on the columbarium to pay for the next columbarium, as long as we don't work internally. So, there's some real discussions over the next few years that are gonna be required over the expansion of the cemetery in general, looking at trends in terms of how people are being buried in the
Yeah.
future. We do have some land to the south of the cemetery that we own that we can look to expand. And a second columbarium would be also on the radar as well. Good question. I'm not too sure. I wasn't here when they built it, but I'm assuming it's in that 100,000+.
More, 5 times as much.
Probably.
It was like, I thought when we were at AMM, it was like almost $500,000.
I guess it depends on how big it is and how many
Yeah.
slots.
Yeah, because if we have 100 and some thousand in the bank, based on the sales, I think that's how we need to
Okay,
create the numbers.
we got that.
Next one, sorry, the overlay, so the paving program in general. So council, has graciously given us a $1.5 million budget to work with. So just so far, the wellness center parking lot with some additional landscaping work, we're approximating that to be about 400,000. Then the MOB and DMOB safety signs for whoever gets the contract and our general patching. So 100 for MOB and DMOB ballpark, 50 for the safety signage and traffic control. Our general patching that we do every year, about 250,000. So totaling all that up, we're about 800,000 that we're set on no matter what. Some of the streets we looked at, that we're considering, St. Godard and Campbell are not in good shapes. Campbell especially is very rough.
Yeah.
And if we're tying together areas that are sort of, that are already paved, it's a thoroughfare, through there, so we're considering that. If we overlay that, it's about 200,000. If we shave and pave it, approximately 500,000. The other places that we're looking at, so what we decided is like, let's look at like public institution areas. These are like the shared amongst the community. Cook Street, we thought of it as another possibility from 3rd to 1st. So Hazelwood from the highway has been all done to that point. 3rd is done, 2nd is done. So we could just finish that next piece.
Yeah.
There is a lot of traffic up Cook that goes to the hospital, and it is kind of getting a little bit, it's getting a little bit wavy. There's also a small section of Latham that we can consider as well. So
Good idea.
so we're sitting at between, depending on what we do with Cook and St. Godard. Sorry, Campbell and St. Godard and Cook, we're looking at 1.3 to 1.6 million, and plus taxes are roughly sort of our ballpark. So I'm not sure if council is okay with some of those ideas, for the tender.
Councilor Hopper?
Speaking of wavy, Traeger, Bagshaw.
Oh, sorry, thank you. So the direction of council, we believe, was to kind of look at what our next steps or the appropriate approach would be to that. So we've been in touch with Maple Leaf specifically to ask for some of their expertise on how we should approach it, whether it's test holes, coring, and whatever. So work that out, and we'll put that into this budget as well. So that this year we're going to determine what, from a professional perspective, what the best approach is for those. So Bagshaw, Reader, Traeger, Lamb. And also we asked him to price out shaving those humps off, at least temporarily as a bit of a relief. So we think we can kind of jam that all into the 1.5 with.
Have we made contact to the paving companies already that put us in the queue?
We'd have to do a tender.
Yeah, but do they know we want pavement?
Yeah, we've
Work on-
discussed with Maple Leaf for sure. So right now, some of the tenders for highway should all be closed and awarded. That's sort of our sweet spot to kind of put our tender up. So we're hoping, by the middle of next month, we'll have a tender.
Have you talked to your partner at OCM to see if they're doing any paving that we can partner with?
I have not spoken to my counterparts.
So that maybe save some more of these, right?
Also, the airport wanted us to include some paving for them as part of this tender,
Yeah.
so they can share some of the mob and demob as well.
Yeah.
We have 200,000 in the budget for that.
Okay, we'll see what we can do with that. Last item I have is a scissor lift. So we did some research in terms of what we're renting roughly. 2023, 2024, we're averaging about $3,000 a year only in current rental costs. However, that number is not truly representative of like how much we could actually utilize a lift. So right now, I'll give an example. I know Joe Barr's not here but there's a light out at the center, and that light's been out and / flickering for 6 months. So we asked the electrician, well, like, how much would it cost for you to come and lift and whatever, change it? Quote was like $1,000. So the idea of us spending $1,000 to change a light bulb seems not appropriate. So the lift was sort of having a lift. It's hard to measure its true value with, because we have lights going out. We're not going to change it until we have multiple lights, and so it's not a great way to compare the 3 to 5. So we're probably in the need of somewhere to 5 to 7 to 10,000 a year in terms of a lift. Then we explored some of the buildings. So somewhere like the museum for the exterior for the Christmas lights, obviously around town, that'd be wonderful. It would allow us to do like additional tree trimming and cutting ourselves, green spaces, and as well as the cemetery. We would not be able to use it at the library, the one that we would need for sort of multi-use. The library is very unique in terms of its layout. The lights are really poorly done, and the entire fixture needs to be changed out. But they're LED fixtures, so it's like once every 10 years. So like once you do it one time, you're sort of good for 10 years. The pool we wouldn't be able to service, unfortunately. The garage would be great, wellness and arena. So we did all the measuring in the hallways of the wellness and arena to get a feel for sort of our maximum size lift. And so we started pricing out lifts that would maximize at that size. For a brand new one, unfortunately, they're a little over $100,000 plus taxes and freight. So we looked at a little bit older units, the 2014 range, and they go for about 40 to 50,000 plus tax and freight. The engine hours are anywhere between 900 and 1,500 hours in that range.
Well, I think if you can bring us a recommendation, Sam, I believe this is something that you don't have right now, so you don't really get the use out of it, but once you have it, you'll be fighting over it, so.
Agreed, yeah.
So I think it's a valuable tool that's gonna pay itself off, maybe not this year, but within the next few years, it'll be paid off, and you have to decide whether you can warrant a brand new one or is a used one good enough, and I think that's the sell job that you can let Laura know and we can go forward. That would be my opinion.
I know even where I was, Merver Becky used to own one, and we needed to rent from him so that we could clean the ductwork, so we could change lights, all those kind of things. So maybe that's also another way you can generate money too.
Yeah, well, there's endless
Yeah.
possibilities once you have one. Even just putting up Christmas lights around the town office, just everything becomes easier when you have a lift. So we were sort of leaning towards a used one. We just need to get some more money about like life cycle costs, yearly certification, just sort of the odds and ends. So we were able to get ourselves ready for today, unfortunately, but
I think council supports some of these objectives. I think council supports you guys putting something forward with that.
I know at the last council meeting, one of the questions is having a discussion over whether or not Zoom boom would be more appropriate, so you guys can comments to that.
yeah, so the scissor lift has the extendable platform. So the one we're looking at can hold 500 pounds. So I have 2 of me wouldn't be able to work with any sort of material in there, but and it can extend somewhere around 20 some feet. The top of the bucket can reach 42 feet, 43 feet. So just for scale, the top light at the wellness center is 22 to 23 feet from the floor. So we would get full use in the wellness center, which would be one of the hardest lights to change, and in the arena, obviously, on the ice surface would be no problem as well.
As long as you can, if you're talking about using it outside, though, it has to be able to be used on unlevel, uneven surfaces, and scissor lifts are not as.
Yes, sir. All the pricings that we came up with are for Zoom Boom.
Yeah. Good. Oh, sounds good.
That's all I have.
One more question for you. Extending that water line, being able to get our existing businesses to expand, what do we do with that?
So we have a Manitoba Water Services Board grant that's open right now, so we were going to apply through that to help make that determination. That's sort of a project that's right in their sort of wheelhouse. So they would cost share the cost of determining the feasibility of it and pricing and sort of nailing everything down.
And then the other part of it is how, where are we at with providing the business owner with some feedback on whether they can expand or not?
I would have to be on the heels of this feasibility.
No, you were going to add it to that other project. That was
Egan Burnside, yeah,
Yeah, so have we got any feedback to them yet?
not yet, no.
We should try to get.
Are we talking about the south of town?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, wasn't sure if it was public yet or.
Well, it's not public, but we should get some feedback to the business that's requesting to expand.
Yeah, we can, whether we get the grant or not, we could still, our plan was to still use the Egan Burnside people with the water plant project and then put it
Yeah.
in, see if we can cost share.
Great. Thanks, Willis.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Lisa Jackson from the museum is here to discuss the education program coordinator position. You guys have questions with regards to that at the last budget meeting? Right, you guys with,
Yeah, it's good.
not 100% sure what council's overall thought was on keeping this position. This is the one that currently is being covered under a grant, but it was only a 1-year grant, if I'm not mistaken, Jackson.
It's a yearly grant.
And is that person still in the role, Jackson?
I'm supporting keeping it.
And currently we don't have a curator, so it's.
Great.
We could still be looking for a curator even if we fill this.
Yep.
Any questions with that position? Everybody's good then?
It's a good idea.
Okay, so we'll keep, or we'll add that in. I believe it was taken out because it was in the discretionary. It's also brought forth an issue sheet for the museum redesign and provided you guys with the report from the engineering. firm for
I think this is a great idea. I don't know where we are with finances. I do like the phase 1 to start off and to get that moving because, you know, I think making that a rotary room, but also maintaining our asset outside, making sure that our windows and our soffits and all that sort of stuff is, the maintenance work is there. So I think you said phase 1 was, what did it include, Jackson?
So phase 1 is the rotary room revamp and then the washrooms. So it would be all the downstairs,
Yeah.
basically. And really depends on what option for the washrooms, because option 2 is significantly more money than.
Yeah. And the maintenance work outside too was included in that?
Yeah, I believe so.
And this is not in the budget, right?
Currently not, no, this was just discussed last week and put in here for your final decision after the capital. Currently the museum has, I believe it's about $100,000 in reserves. We could consider using that, but the rest would have to be funded through taxation.
Is there any granting opportunities for this, Jackson?
Yeah, so right now, looking at Canadian Cultural Spaces Fund, they'll fund up to a max of 50%. But they wanted to see that you have 67% of the funding, which is kind of an interesting decision on their part, but they will fund it even if it's over like a multi-year, like you don't have to complete it in 1 year kind of thing, like the project would still be able to be eligible over multiple years.
Well, personally, I would like to at least get the maintenance work done and do some work on the bottom. I would hate us to be in a Skippy L situation where we haven't taken care of this heritage building and we're all sort of wondering why now it's $600,000 and it needs to be tore down. So I would guess we need to know how much exactly dollars we would need from the council or from the community. And what's the possibility of getting grants to cover the cost, but I know it's a big bill to expend, but I think at the same time, if we don't do it this year, then what year is it gonna be done? And if we're not gonna do anything at all, I think that we at least have to do the maintenance work.
I think if the town provided a letter of support for the 67% requirement, that should suffice to be able to qualify for that grant. I think we could also probably apply for a grant through accessibility.
For the bathroom.
For the
Yeah.
bathroom side of things, those bathrooms are from the 1980s. They definitely do not meet today's accessibility standards, so we'll qualify under that. And it'll just be a matter of which design. What's the difference between the two designs that there's such a price difference?
I believe it was due to the storage space that one of them creates. Yeah,
So the storage space.
so one of them creates a storage, like an extra storage area.
And that's something that the museum currently needs.
That's what we were looking into, for sure. Just because, yeah, we're gonna overwhelm with
Yep.
excess stuff and
So,
gift shop items.
sorry, so this is multiple washrooms. Does there need to be multiple?
Like, no, it would basically take it down, like, do you mean?
Is there currently a
There's
male
currently
and
men's
female?
and women's washrooms
Okay.
at the museum, it would turn it into just one washroom area.
Okay,
So could we not just say there's 100,000 in reserve? Right now?
This project was in total, phase one was what, 200 and?
Phase one would be either 262 or 315,000.
And we've got 100,000 in reserve. We can use that as seed money for applying for grants. That's 50% of.
Yeah, but we also can help support the rest of it. Like, I mean, I guess it comes down to is council willing to increase that amount in case we don't qualify for some of the grants?
Well, one question I have here is on the issue sheet, if the department head recommends delaying the project for a year. So is that still your recommendation?
Oh, that's right.
That's what I did not vote last week.
Yeah, I sent you an updated one to recommend be phase two.
Oh, I didn't get it. I'm sorry, I didn't get an updated one. I got a reply back from you. This is something that the board is strongly.
Yeah, so I updated it with.
Oh, okay.
So my recommendation would be phase two, just because it's cheaper than phase one.
These are estimate figures, like
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah, they're not set in stone.
And they were done, I believe, in the fall, correct? So there's a possibility for an increase there.
Or decrease.
I doubt that.
We did the estimates.
Bridgman Collaborative, I believe they contracted, just give me 1 second.
Oswald.
Yeah, Postma Consulting.
So we have to give something, what do we want to bump it up to?
So sorry, these costs are just for the redesign of the museum itself. Does that include any, like, do we have to do storage for items to move them out for the redesign? Like, is there any additional cost besides this?
It does include, the moving of things, if I'm not mistaken. But it does include like all the sort of shelving and office materials and all those kinds of things that.
Well, the reason I'm asking though is some of the items in the collection are very fragile. We can't just move them around like anything else. So we having to accommodate extra storage, specialized handling.
Yeah, I mean, we're not moving artifacts specifically, we're moving the archival library. So we're moving all of the books that are currently in there. So that can be done with myself and a potential curator. That part's not the end of the world. It would probably just be a matter of, because I know there's these two big cabinets in the archival library that have a lot of sort of fragile paper in them. That would probably be the biggest concern with them.
So even though we don't have the updated sheet mentioned, you're suggesting do phase 2. And I'm getting that from the idea that, because that's what we can afford. based on
Yeah,
reserve.
that's what I would, just because it's cheaper.
Right.
But the rotary room is a revenue generator, right?
Yeah, that's the other thing with. Now, obviously, if we were to start it this year, it would be a different time than right now, but right now is kind of our big sort of rental season. So the other thing with doing phase 2 instead of phase 1, if we were to do phase 1 at the beginning of next year, for example, it would close down sort of the rotary room, washroom area, and we couldn't accept rentals during our big high season for rentals. Is kind of the
Did they tell you how long phase 1 would take?
not exactly, no, I don't think so.
Based on the number, not very long. Being only $109,000.
But phase 1 would just be a close to the museum temporarily, depending on how fast we can move everything.
That's all.
You said phase 2 because it's more affordable, but between phase 1 and phase 2, which one do you say is more needed?
Probably phase 1, I would say.
Your comment about the Scipio mayor, I would hate to see us get into that sort of situation again. I'd rather just start giving a few more dollars to this to tackle it. So if you have to go with phase 1, it'll make more expensive, but I'd rather not see another community asset deteriorate.
And does it matter, Jackson? But for the brickwork outside, there was some specific people who could do that work. Is that the same case inside the building?
Yeah, I think so, because from what I understand, it has to be done with like a supervisory, like in this case, Bridgman Collaborative, because they're like, they have whatever license, expertise, whatever it is, to actually work on sort of heritage historic.
Oh, so they're the ones who would actually come as well. Okay, sorry.
Because
Gotcha.
from what I understand, if I were to contract a different group, they wouldn't accept the first group sort of report, and they would have to do a whole report on their end.
So maybe to make our lives a little easier, Jackson, because we have a 100-page report. Maybe you could summarize this in 1 page with the actual costs of each of the phases. Just so that we have a better idea, and then work with Laura and see how much money is required from council or from the municipality to execute those phases. And then that way we can just have a quick discussion, even you can have a discussion on Monday at the council meeting to decide what direction to go to it, so that because this is a very detailed report, it's really well done, but I think we need to get some, maybe a little bit less information there for us, and we know we want to protect the asset, and we know we need to do the right things, so. But at the same time, we don't think we have $500,000. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Everybody's good? Oh, yeah.
There's also issue sheet on the
Fire
fire
suppression.
suppression system. So it was recommended by our annual inspectors that we consider changing the fire suppression system in the archive room of the museum, because it's currently water-based, which would ruin every piece that's in that room. I'm not sure, Jackson, if it's possible to talk to Bridgman Collaborative to see what it would take to redo the whole entire system in this design. Like, my fear is that it's not just the archival room that is at risk, it's the entire library and museum. It's everything, because the whole entire system is a water suppression system.
There's no way, there are other ways to protect the,
Well, we have everything obviously in cabinets, on shelving and stuff, and they have a plastic sheet, but that's mainly for regular pests and stuff like that.
I think we need to do this. I don't know why it hasn't been done already, but so it seems odd that it's been like this for how long? Forever.
Yeah, I would say.
And the inspector recommended the archive room just because it was easy to get at and it wouldn't be something that would require approval from the Heritage Society just because of the way it's set up. But I would have to get a quote if we were going to consider redoing the whole entire thing, and then we would have to see if they would be able to do the work if we were going to put this into the redesign of the whole entire museum. But
Yeah,
it's a big risk that that's sitting there, losing everything that's there if it accidentally goes off.
and we don't have a museum anymore.
Exactly, we'd have nothing in the museum.
Yeah. So I think I support doing something that should have been done since day one.
Okay, so Jackson and I will work on
Anybody have
it.
any concerns with that?
No,
Not at all. Just a question for Jackson that's totally unrelated to our spending of this, but how are we progressing with like digitizing our collection in case a fire were to happen, we at least have the digital?
Well, we're still we I just trained, the education and programming, coordinator on how to properly upload to the new database. So we're starting to make headway there. And she's also been, prior to that, she's also been, tasked with taking a lot of, pictures of things that we don't already have pictures of as well. So that's kind of where we're at with that at the moment. It's progressing, but obviously when she's not exactly like curatorial level, it's a bit slower than normal, but that's where we are.
Any other questions of that? Okay, Mr. Byron, you're the last guy.
Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you, Jackson. So let's just look at your summary page, Jackson,
Fine.
or
So
I usually call Jackson, what do I normally call you Jackson? I usually call you some other name.
You call me John?
Yeah, John. I'm absolutely worse with names. I call my kids all different names, so don't take it personally. Sorry, Larry. Sorry, Fire. Yeah, so radio room door. Read the information. I guess more of a comfort thing too, right? Doors open with cold in there, like.
Comfort, health and safety. We did do some air quality testing here. Well, that was in November, and there was some particulates coming on this side, not a whole lot, but there was some.
But exposure wise, like that's not like we're working in a garage where the engines are running full
No.
days and.
These figures in the budget.
these ones are not, no, they were the ones that were not approved at the last meeting, so we had to come back with more information on that budget.
Okay, so, and the door, so I think it is an improvement. So I'm still not 100% sure on it yet.
I had one question on it. Do you not foresee it being an issue with communication between the apparatus bay and the radio room? Since that, especially at the beginning of a call, that tends to be a lot of communication between them. And I kind of foresee the door being propped open a lot, just as a question. It's not a criticism.
No,
It was something that we did talk about years ago, so.
no, I think we've gone down to one radio to communicate on, so there's communication.
But I mean, when a pager goes off and the first person comes, takes that radio room or whatever your process is now. They're communicating with what's going on because the guys arriving are getting dressed and trying to decide what are they doing, what are they taking. That communication is coming from somewhere. How does the guy in the radio room or the woman in the radio room communicate if there's now a steel door? Allow or disallowing that communication to be able to yell to them, chief wants this or chief wants that.
Well, communication comes from IC to the officer of the truck, not the radio operator. The radio operator doesn't have anything to do with telling people what to do. It's the officer of that
So
truck.
then why is the radio room needed if they're not communicating your direction before an officer arrives? If an officer doesn't arrive first, who's communicating your information?
They're there to write down. That's all they're there for.
I think what Council Manager said, but I've run the department for years as well, and that first couple of minutes, there's all kinds of communication. There used to be between the radio room, message comes in, guys hurry, getting in the truck, getting his gear on, he didn't hear what it was, doesn't have his radio yet. It just, there is, to me, it would be kind of a critical time for, yeah, you want this, you want that.
Yeah, most of our critical information is relayed after we hear the trucks responding. That way, you're not playing the telephone game where you might get a miscommunication from IC to the radio operator to the guys on the truck, where if it just goes, oh, truck's coming, okay, here's the information. There is no,
You don't have the speaker up there at all, I can do that. So it's mainly for health and safety is what you're looking at.
yeah,
But then don't we have to look at then doors between the shop and the Aquas Bay and the gear room and thing, if it's a health and safety issue? Those are all leading into, right? Like, it's just, again, I just see more concern with it, that it doesn't become operational than the idea. The idea is great. We talked about it years ago. Logistically, it didn't matter.
When I look at, so we don't spend a ton of time here, when I look at the requests, that are coming in and if we don't have unlimited amount of money. If I said I wanted to spread some stuff out over a couple of years, I'm not 100% sold on the radio room door, but if you really wanted to dig your heels in it, I would probably say how passionate he is, really wants it. I could be convinced. The pagers, I'd say this year, the meals, I don't see an issue with that. The only issue I see is that you need to make that way less complicated and use it as if there's a budget for the chief to decide when he's gonna supply a meal and when he's not, and not have all the rules around it and put some governance around that and don't put all those
It
details in
should
there.
just be an increase. I mean, everything.
Yeah, so it's really up to you as the chief to decide when you're doing that and when you're not doing it, and that would make a bunch of rules around it, cause you're gonna get yourself handcuffed. On the forcible entry door, I would say 2026, put it in budget, look for grants in 2025. Zodiac equipment, I would say no, I don't think we go up there enough right now, and if we wanna put it in the budget, yeah. We need to fix the equipment that we have, just like our equipment, so we smash up a truck, we should get it fixed. And the plastic cribbing, I would say buy some of it this year, maybe split your budget in half and buy half of it in 2026. I don't think that that's unreasonable. And then, so if I look at this list, how passionate you are with the door, maybe, the pagers, I'm gonna lean on you. Do you think that we need pagers? We need them?
That's an operation. It should be.
Yeah, if you need them, get them. $500 is there. 18,000, go to 2026. Zodiac equipment, put it in the budget for 2026 or further. Fix the truck and 3,500 for the cribbing and put it in the budget for 2026 for the other half.
Isn't the truck covered by insurance?
Yeah, it says that it's been so long though, when it got broken, nobody reported it, so if you read the sheet, it says that they don't. It was a couple of years ago, it was like that.
But it also said that you didn't check into if that was the truth or not. Like, it didn't say that I asked and they said no, it was more like we're going to assume. So is it a possibility to ask?
Well, yeah, exactly.
We could ask MPI, ask
Yeah.
what the happen is, because the information you provided says, we haven't asked,
Yeah.
but we're assuming it's not.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah, we should, I take it as let's try to get MPI to pay it first, even if we don't have a driver. If they can pay it, we should, so that's without spending a ton of time, 3,500. Get the truck fixed, hopefully insurance. No for the Zodiac stuff for this year. The door entry for the training area, put it in your 26 or look for grants. Your meals, you figure that out. But I wouldn't say create a big fancy procedure for that. Just leave it at your discretion. Pagers, get them if you need them. And the radio room door, I'll leave that for you to decide how passionate you're about it. I'm personally, I don't see it being that big of an issue, but I'm not in your guys' role, so I'll leave that with you. So that's how I would see us laying this out.
Just one question on the navigation system. Do you get a lot of night calls for the river? On
Yeah.
any ballpark?
Last year, we had 14 water rescues.
At night?
12 of them were at night.
Really? Didn't get lost?
No,
We have big spotlights as well. You guys have big spotlights and stuff for that, right?
they're just little, kind of like automotive ones that you can buy at Carly's.
Well, maybe
Out at the
that.
lake, they go about 50 feet.
Couple of light bars.
And yet RCMP was doing most of the water rescues this year, from all the reporting I saw.
We
And
don't
your stats are different.
all the water rescues, we go out with them, because some of them are both of us, some of them are just us.
But I heard a lot of situations that arose this year while attempting to do water rescues. That RCMP did because ultimately RCMP is responsible for our waterways, right? If we're doing a water rescue, the billing should go to RCMP anyway. And again, I'm just putting out there, I don't think that's needed. I would agree that maybe some better lighting, marine type lighting would be beneficial.
Yeah, that was a kind of a one, not a need.
And I did want to say that the pagers, yes, they should be operations, meals, again, you gotta feed the guys if they're working hard. There's no reason why you shouldn't have the money to feed them where needed. Training area, we do have a training prop that this district had bought, so it's not that you're not without. Again, I agree with the mayor that that's quite a luxury item, right?
Yeah.
That's a real luxury. That's not even an idea to do force luxury. That's like top level that I don't think this department needs to spend $18,000 on that. I'd rather see $18,000 get on all the repairs of the training grounds that need to be completed. And RRU, if MPI isn't covering, I still feel we should definitely get the work done no matter what. The fire department should always be the pride of the community,
Exactly.
and we watch vehicles in parades, they should be pristine.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing to not have it that way.
I agree. Clear? Everybody else have any questions?
What I'm clear on is the door, if I'm including that or not including it.
I'm gonna leave that with Byron. If Byron, I think if Byron says that, he comes to you and says, I really, really darn want that door,
Okay.
then we'll take it. If he says, I can live without it.
Talk to you Wednesday.
Now you know what to say.
And I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, like, say, for example, when CDC was presenting, we have the line by line, what's going what, right? Fire department, we don't see, right? I haven't seen a line by line one. Why is pagers not part of operations? We talked about it in the fall about radios.
It is.
It
It's
is.
just that
So this
with
is in-
his increase, then that was
Okay.
for additional.
So
work.
realistically, we should be able to buy pagers with current budget money. This is extra money. And
That's extra money to get additional ones because he inherited the department, he inherited it with 8 pagers. Because in the past, things got broken and they were replaced, so you would like to.
and the reason I say it should be, or I thought it would be operations, is because this council has basically given an extra $65,000 a year, not extra, but to be part of the SCBA's. And I'm concerned now that it's getting a breakdown, just kind of skirt the idea that all the eggs went into a basket for SCBA's instead of to continue running the department.
No, there's money there for that. It was just an increase to bring it up to the standard we needed to, and then it'll go back down next year to where it normally is on flat.
And that would be operations.
Yeah.
I believe the pagers may have actually come from myself, as when you first presented, I'd asked why everybody didn't have one at the scene.
So that was radio.
Crazy, pardon me, yes. My question is about the cribbing. I think the suggestion was to kind of go half on that. Are you okay with going half on that, or would you want the full set?
Can it be split?
It can be split.
Can we split?
Of course, he wants the full set.
So the current cribbing that you have now is okay, and if it isn't, then you would not purchase this kind, you would need to get other, or no?
Like we currently run with the wood cribbing.
Yeah.
And some of it is starting to break. I don't know how old some of it actually is, but this will replace parts of it, and then next year we can replace the other half of it. Then we'll be in good shape.
How long would the plastic cribbing last?
We've been using the stuff in Weyburn since I've been there.
And then the wooden cribbing, how often are you replacing that?
I would assume after any large rescue or any time it's impact loaded, because you don't know how safe it actually is. But the resin stuff, there is no impact loading on it.
So if we delay half of it to next year, are we saving money or losing money? If I stick with wooden cribbing and maybe replacing it?
There will be a cost increase next year for inflation on this, because everything we get comes from the States. Like, yeah, we can buy from a Canadian supplier, but it's all made down in the US.
Well, we should be, as a community, anything we should be purchasing should be trying to be purchased and made in Manitoba, not, or in Canada, not in, so I think. Maybe speaking for all of council, but, you know, I hope that those discussions are happening, that whatever can be purchased from industries in the Canada, that's where we should be getting from. I know there's certain things we just can't do it, but manufactured in Canada is where we want to go. Hey?
You think you'd be able to get that in Canada?
Yeah. So, you know, I think even if you have to pay a few extra dollars, I don't think that, that's a bad move or poorly spent money.
Good.
But I mean, with your cribbing though, that's just wooden 4x4s and stuff like that. I mean, you could just go get some more and make them.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's mission critical. I think one of the things with plastic cribbing, it's just ease of use too. It's easier for the firefighters to be able to lift and carry and push and
Cleaning it,
different.
getting the bodily fluids off of it, because I spent 2.5 days.
Wouldn't you just chuck that, burn it?
Yeah, wooden cribbing, you just replace all that.
Yeah.
You could, yeah. This was on one of our big step chalks. That,
And at the end of the day, we both know you could buy all the plastic cribbing for $7,000 more, and you still don't have enough at your seat, right? It's something you're always building on. So
absolutely.
to me, there's no harm in buying half of it now.
Yeah.
Maybe you get it, you don't even like it in comparison to what we're typically dealing with, because there's benefits both ways, right? I mean, nothing saying that it's better.
Yeah.
And it's rare that that cribbing is in bodily fluids, might be in fluids from vehicle mat, but it's very, very rare that it's in bodily fluids. Unless all firefighters are taking a leak at the site.
Okay, anything else with any of that stuff? Are we good? What do you think we need for next steps?
Thanks, Byron.
There's gonna be a few more changes to,
Byron, thanks for all the work you've done on this.
there's gonna be a few more changes based on what you have given us today. And a few more things that we need to look into, so I think there needs to be at least one more meeting before the public hearing.
Yep.
Currently, that meeting was set for April 14th. However, council is gonna be away at AMM as well as the CAO, so we're gonna have to move that meeting.
About April 7th, or is that too early? Or-
No, April 7th works for me. But that is on a council meeting, or it's not a council meeting.
That's a public hearing that day.
That's the day of the public hearing for the special service levy at 5 o'clock, so April 7th doesn't work.
What about April 11th? On the Friday?
I'm not in the office Fridays.
What about April the 9th and a Wednesday?
I can do the 9th.
Okay? Eighth, what about the eighth?
Tuesday.
5 o'clock.
Five? 5 o'clock?
Fine.
Actually, we shouldn't leave much time, and then if we. Okay, seeing we have nothing else, motion adjourned. Thanks for all your work, Laura, it's been a